saw Christ in everybody she ministered to.
Fire just completely roars through
the skies over Baghdad.
CNN and Time with Jeff Greenfield and Bernard Shaw.
Good evening and welcome to CNN and Time. Bernard Shaw is off tonight. We devote this whole hour to Earth Day and to what our partners at Time magazine call the heroes of the planet in their global special edition, How to Save the Earth. These are people who celebrate the beauty of our world and its diverse population, human and otherwise, and who are fighting to protect it. To begin, it's happening all over the country, possibly in your own neighborhood. Toxic waste facilities that move in and bring with them a threat to the health of their neighbors. When it happened in tiny Winona, Texas, Winona found a secret weapon, a housewife named Phyllis Glazer. Here's Kathy Slobogan.
12 years ago, Phyllis Glazer, a wealthy Dallas housewife, was looking for a weekend retreat. She and her family bought this luxury ranch 90 miles east of Dallas in a town called Winona. Population 457.
It was a real family thing, and my children's friends came, and it was paradise. We loved it so much. My husband got tired of my son and I driving back at the end of the weekend crying. So he said, look, you guys live there, I'll come for long weekends. So that's what we did. And one day I drove my child to school through a chemical cloud that made us very ill.
Glazer says over the next few days she had a burning sensation in her nose and throat. She didn't know why. What she also didn't know was that 2 miles down the road from her ranch was a plant called Gibraltar that disposed of hazardous waste from some of the biggest industrial companies in the United States. Glazer found out about the plant when she went to a community meeting to meet her new neighbors. She found the town up in arms.
They were screaming about their water, and I was listening to all this, and that's when I realized what that plant did, that they had a hazardous waste injection well facility there where they were injecting untreated, undiluted hazardous waste a mile deep and letting it migrate under all of our lands.
Since it began operations in 1982, Gibraltar had repeatedly violated state law with hundreds of spills, emissions, and explosions. In a confidential inspection report, one customer, Mobil Oil, gave the plant a failing grade, F, for contaminating the groundwater.
People were worried about the water, and the president of the company, I still remember, stands up at this meeting and he says, well, if we contaminate the aquifer, we'll just clean it up. And I stood up and I said, you don't have that kind of money. I don't know of anybody who does.
Glazer, who had led a sheltered life as the wife of a wealthy businessman, says she was surprised by her sudden outburst over the environment.
I don't know if I could have spelled environmental. Believe it or not, I was a very timid, very shy woman.
In the months after the meeting, residents of the poor working-class town began showing up at Glazer's ranch.
I have been there. People were coming by all the time saying they had heard that I'd spoken out at the meeting, and did I know what was wrong with their child? And they started bringing me children with birth defects like I could never have imagined in such a small town. So many. Cancers and, I mean, everything.
There were children like Jamesia. Her grandmother, Georgie Jones, says Jamesia suffers from albinism, respiratory problems, and is going blind. She's been hospitalized 3 times for mysterious sores.
Her whole body just got sore. She had got where she couldn't hardly walk. She broke out with that, whatever it was that was in her hair and in her mouth. And got in her face and around her neck, in the crevices of her neck.
Glazer discovered Winona was a community overwhelmed with unexplained health problems, birth defects, and premature deaths.
I mean, people were telling me, professionals, sell and run.
Glazer says it was the children who made her stay, and what she had learned from her late father, who had barely escaped the Holocaust.
And I just remembered all the stories my father told me about the Holocaust and all the people that had been coming to my house asking for help. And I said, you know, every once in a while in your life, you have to make a decision based on who you are and what you stand for.
We had really done all that we could do.
Reverend Sylvester Curry, the minister at New Zion Baptist Church, says for years people in Winona smelled the chemical odors from the plant and heard the explosions. They watched their children get sick and were afraid the chemicals were the cause. They hired a lawyer, went to meetings, but the plant remained in operation. Finally, they ran out of money.
And then Phyllis came along, and Phyllis was a fresh, new, person, and not only did she have the will, she had the means, she had the financial, backing that this needed.
We've got to do something because...
Glazer says she spent her entire inheritance, more than $1 million, to hire engineers, geologists, and lawyers to gather the evidence to shut down the plant. She founded Moses. Mothers organized to stop environmental sins. She organized pickets and called in the big city media.
Let them sign our demands.
In 1992, Texas sued Gibraltar for its repeated violations of state law. The company never admitted guilt, but it did pay a fine of over $1 million, the largest civil penalty of its kind in the state. A few days after the penalty, Gibraltar's owners sold the plant to a new company, American Ecology. But the plant never actually closed. State environmental officials say they didn't have sufficient evidence of a health threat to shut it down.
My understanding is that we looked into the situation, but that we could not find a causal link between any of the operations at the facility and any effect on the community.
Glazer hired her own toxicologist, who found chemicals in the groundwater at 100 to 1,000 times above safe drinking water levels. Chemicals the Environmental Protection Agency has linked to neurological impairment, organ damage, and birth defects.
They handled every chemical made by man. 2/10 of a mile from the nearest neighbors, 2 miles from the school.
In 1996, with Glazer's help, 640 people sued American Ecology and the plant's former owners for harming their health and devaluing their property. In court papers, the companies deny responsibility for any injuries, saying the plant was run in compliance with all applicable industry standards. The suit also named 74 customers, many Fortune 500 companies, that shipped waste to the plant for disposal. Almost all of them have settled, paying a total of $15 million. But American Ecology and the plant's former owners are still fighting the lawsuit. It is scheduled to go to trial later this month. American Ecology also sued Glazer for maliciously disseminating patently false and defamatory statements.
They sued me. They sued our organization. They sued my elderly mother. They sued my husband. And they sued his family business, which means his cousins and relatives.
When she countersued, the company dropped its case. In 1997, American Ecology shut down the plant, saying Glazer's relentless legal assault had drained its financial resources and driven away its customers. The company declined CNN and Times' request for an interview, citing the upcoming trial. But Glazer is still fighting. She and other women in the community distribute what they call wasted babies, to call attention to the plight of the children who became sick or died while living near the plant.
Michael Williams, he has neurofibromatosis, in lay terms, an elephant man's disease. The Smileys had a beautiful baby daughter, was born healthy, and the two that were born once the facility came in were both born with serious birth defects. Mandy Clark is dead. She came down with Hodgkin's disease when she was 9 years old.
Why? Why would you come into a small town, bring something that you knew was going to be damaging to health? Why?
If you live in a wealthy community, and if you are white, your chances of being the nearest neighbor to a dangerous facility is nil. But if your skin is dark, If you're poor, your chances increase. These companies say it's because the land is cheap in those areas. But I think it's also because there's no enforcement in those areas, or very little of it.
They left us to our own fate.
Now Glazer is going after the state of Texas, which over the years collected $1 million+ in fines from the plant. Last month, she organized a community march to demand that the state pay reparations, including free health care for Winona citizens who are sick and college scholarships for their children.
We want restitution from the state of Texas for all who were exposed here, for the lands that were devalued. They owe that to us now. Yes. Woo!
Texas environmental officials insist the state did its job.
The request for reparations or damages assumes that something was done wrong or something was done incorrectly. And as we've stated repeatedly, we think the enforcement actions were appropriate and timely.
Let my people go.
Glazer says she is now taking her fight beyond Winona to other communities targeted for hazardous waste plants.
In Egypt land,
Are there other Winonas out there?
Oh, thousands, right in this country. Thousands. I want my country back. I want it out of the hands of the lobbyists and out of the hands of big business, and put back into the hands not just of the people, but of the poorest, disenfranchised people. That's who this country belongs to. When you find something that's worth giving your life for, you will change.
Phyllis, I'll always love you for what you did for us. We'd have never gotten here, Phyllis, if you hadn't helped us.
Glazer has recently been working with a Jackson, Wyoming group called Keep Yellowstone Nuclear Free. And in June, the Moses organization will take what it calls its overground railroad to 3 communities in Michigan threatened with hazardous waste. For more on Phyllis Glazer and Moses, log on to CNN in Time online at cnn.com/CNN Time. We'll be back in a moment.